Hey paper crafters, do you love snowflakes? Then come along with me and let's make an elegant and classy Christmas card with snowflakes. Today we're going to be using the one-of-a-kind photopolymer stamp set, and this is new in the Holiday 2024 mini catalog from Stampin' Up, and it also has a die. So I'm using the bundle. It seems like a small die, and it actually is, but it cuts out the shape of our snowflake, and it also has a beautiful detailed die. We're going to be using the detailed die today, but I want to show you this great stamp set. So if you like snowflakes, this set is for you. It has a beautiful large design that we are going to use today, and also 3 different sized smaller ones, and we're going to use those as well. It has some great greetings, so a to from if you want to make some tags for Christmas or anything. Thank you for your kindness, a little something just for you. Sending a flurry of happy wishes. You are one of a kind, wonderful friend, and hope you have the merriest season ever. So one great thing about this stamp set, one really great thing, is that it's not just for Christmas, and it's not just for winter. Yeah, well, maybe it is just for winter. But the thank you for your kindness, a little something just for you. There's lots of different occasions that you can use this for. So I've pulled in all of the stamps that we're going to use, and my Versamark stamp pad, and also my embossing buddy. So I'm just going to take the lid off of that. And I've also pulled in a piece of thick basic white. Now, if you want to get all the measurements, you can head on over to my blog. The link is in the description below. And I'm using thick because we're going to be embossing this. So I'm going to stamp, first of all, with my biggest snowflake. And when I have a stamp that's really a little bit bigger than my stamp pad, I turn it upside down and I just take my pad directly to my stamp. Now you might be wondering what I have here, and this is my Stampin' Pierce mat, and it's great because with photopolymer there's no cushion in the stamp. So we are creating a cushion by putting it onto, stamping it onto our Stampin' Pierce mat. And I just cover mine with a little piece of grid paper. Now before I actually put any type of ink on here, I want to swipe it with my embossing buddy. And this is just a little pouch that has like a sand rack or just a little powder on here that stops some of our little embossing flecks from sticking. So now what you want to do is we want to stamp our image. So I'm going to try and stamp this as much as I can in the top middle part of the card. And I'm going to stamp it so that the stamp is straight up and down. And you can just try your best to get it nice and straight. Give it some good pressure. And again, the give on the Stampin' Pierce mat is going to help. Hold on to your paper because it's going to be sticky. In fact, you can even hear that. And now what we're going to do before we move on and do the other ones is I want to put some embossing powder on that. And we're doing gold today. And this is a new set of 3, and it's called the Metallics Wow. And I've pulled out the gold, but it also has silver and copper in there. You can get any of these supplies over on my site as well if you're interested. Now before I sprinkle that gold powder on there, I want to just bring in a plain old piece of bond paper that I've folded in half. I'm going to put my paper right on top of that and I'm going to sprinkle. Now, one of the best things about stamping is embossing. So if you remember the very first time, maybe this is the first time you're seeing it, but if you remember the first time you saw it, it really is a wow. And that's why it's called embossing powder named Wow. So I've got that stamped on there, and you'll see probably that there's just specks around. So I want to give it a good flick on the back, and that will get rid of quite a number of those specks. Now I do still have a few little specks there, so I'm going to go in with a really maligned old paintbrush that I have, and you might be able to tell that I actually have cut some of those bristles off just to make it a little bit pointier. So I'm going to just take those pieces right off, and they're little tiny pieces of plastic, and I want them off the white because if we don't, they're just going to melt in the spot where they are, and you're going to have little gold spots everywhere. We don't want that. Okay, so once we've done that, go ahead and heat that up. So if you want to use your heat tool at setting number 2, And this is the wow part. Look at that change. Now what you want to do when you're embossing is as soon as it changes color to that bright gold, you want to move on to a different section. And then when you're done, you just want to tilt it around a little bit. And if there's any spots that are still a little bit opaque, they're a little bit darker, they're not shiny gold, then it means it needs another hit. I'm doing okay right here. So now what we're going to do, I'm going to take my embossing buddy again, and I'm just going to do that around the outside edge a little bit. And I'm just swiping, I'm not pouncing. And I'm going to start with my largest stamp, and I'm just going to stamp this randomly, just one time though. And this one I'm going to stamp up here. And the next largest one I'm going to stamp down here. And this is just random. Next one I'm going to stamp over here. And I know you can't see this, but once we are done, now that I've done all of my stamping, I'm going to go back in again and I'm going to sprinkle more of the gold embossing powder. So let me just pull that in. Just be careful that you put your fingers down near the bottom and just sprinkle sort of where, I can't see this either, sort of where you thought you stamped. And then what you're going to get is something like this. And again, I have to flick off the back, and that will get rid of some. But here it's not getting rid of all. So I'm going to pull that in again. And now we're going to heat that up. And then when you're done, you have a beautiful set of snowflakes. You can put more snowflakes on there if you like. I'm going to leave it there at our 5. And you want an odd number. So I'm also going to use my embossing buddy here. And I'm going to use my Versamark again. And I'm going to do the words this time. We're going to do them exactly the same. So now before we do anything else, we are going to take our embossing powder and we are going to put that right back into the container that it came in. I put it in and I give it a tap, and then I put the lid back on and I'm good. So just heat this up. Now what we're going to do with our words is we are going to cut them out, and we're going to use the stylish shapes, and we're going to use this banner right here. And place that right over top. Try and get it as straight as possible. And then just take a piece of Post-it note tape or something to hold it down. And we're going to run that through our Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. Now this is my mini because it'll handle a little piece like this. So run that through. And there we go. We have our words, and we can put dimensionals on the back of this one. Now, before we get too far on the next one, what I want to do is I want to take a piece of ribbon and I want to wrap that around. So I am using the Night of Navy and Gold ribbon. Just beautiful and goes perfectly with this, with the gold. Now to put ribbon on, I just want to have a line of it across there. What I'm going to use is my tear and tape. I'm going to take one piece, put it on the bottom. And you want to try and get this as straight as possible. So what I normally do is I look, just eyeball how far up from the bottom I am on the side that already has the tape, and then I match that one up. And I don't take this tape off. I leave it on there. Okay, so now we have that on the bottom. And I'm going to adhere this to a piece of our Night of Navy. So I have a piece of Night of Navy here that's already been folded, and I'm going to glue it on here. But instead of just gluing it down, I want to give it some dimension. So I'm going to take my foam adhesive strips, and I cut mine so that they are about 3.5, 4 inches or so. And I just pull them right off, and I place them about, I don't know, 3/8 of an inch perhaps, not quite that much maybe, on both sides. And then I also put along the top. And that's why I cut them this size, because they will stay within the edges of a regular sort of standard mat that we use on our cards. So I do those 4, and then I do one more. I do one more on a diagonal in the middle. And that stops your paper from sort of sinking into the card. Remove your backing. Now, one thing to note here is that because I have my tear and tape backing still on, this adhesive the adhesive strip doesn't really like to stick there. So give yourself a little bit of liquid glue just to hold that in place. And it is sticky, so you have to sort of play with it a bit. This side too, I'm going to put another little bit of glue. And that means it'll just hold it down. Okay, so now place that on the front of your card, trying to get it as straight as possible. And what it's going to do is it's going to have the card stand up, but it's also, you can see where we've embossed it, that it's got just a little bit of a wow to it. So it's going to flatten it out a little bit more. If you want to flatten it out even more, just put this underneath a book or something heavy. Okay, now we want to add just a little more pizzazz. This is going to go down here. It's a beautiful card, but we want just a tiny bit more pizzazz. So in order to do some pizzazz, I'm pulling in our textured foil paper, and this is actually called, let me get the real name, Textured Metallic 12 by 12 Specialty Paper. And it has 3 colors. It's got a beautiful copper, the gold, which we're using. You can see I've already used some. And then this is sort of a silver, but it's a really blue silver. But it's beautiful because you can see the texture and the lines running this way. So I've taken a piece of the gold and I've cut it down, and on the back I've put just a little piece of our adhesive sheets. So these come in a package of 12 and they'll last you a long time. But we're going to use that small detailed die for the snowflake, this guy right here, and we're going to cut it out. Just pull that off. And I'm going to run that through my Stamp and Cut and Emboss machine as well. Because we have put the adhesive on the back, this will be might be a little bit easier to get out. But what's going to happen is these little pieces are going to stay probably stuck in there. And so you want to just take your pick tool. I found this to be the easiest. It's the gentlest on the paper itself. But you just want to poke out those little spots. So I think there's 10 of them or whatever. And that's for the trash, but we're going to take this and we're going to place it right over top. It will go right over the top there. Now what I did is I didn't have my paper go all the way to the edge on purpose, because then it's a lot easier for me to start the edge. So I just pick up the edge of that back piece of the double-sided adhesive sheets, pull that off, and then I can put this directly down on top. And it immediately gives you just instant wow to your card. Then we're just going to take our greeting and we're going to place that down on the bottom. And if we find that you need to add a little bit of glue to your dimensionals there, go ahead and do that. But it's okay just like this. So I want to show you as well what I did for the inside of the card. So here I pulled in my Night of Navy and I just stamped those snowflakes, and I stamped once and then stamped again, stamped once, stamped again, and did the same thing here. And we're just going to put that on the inside of the card. And I just used a little dab of glue there because people can maybe reuse your card afterwards to send to somebody else just by pulling off this piece. It goes a little bit easier. Now what I have to do here though is I hold down this piece of white and I just run that because I had where it actually slides off. So there's your card. So I'm pulling in the adhesive backed metallic gems. And these come in 3 colors. So you've got your silver, gold, and your copper. And I used a large of the gold for the middle of the snowflake. And I just put 2 small, now you can do whatever you want, but I put 2 small ones on either side of our banner. And then that's enough just to give it a little bit of life. So there's the 2 cards, almost exactly the same. And I hope you enjoyed that project. So if you did, please subscribe to my channel and head on over to my site at designwithjo.ca and get yourself signed up for my email. I have all kinds of free tips and tricks and information and special deals just for my email subscribers. Thanks very much. Have a great paper crafting day.